What dark secret are you hiding from everyone? Story 1. When my grandpa was on his deathbed, he admitted to killing fellow Marines in the Vietnam War for torturing and raping young girls. Most of our family doesn't know. Story 2. After my parents got divorced, my stepdad basically moved right in and started sexually abusing me. I knew it was wrong deep down somewhere, but figured since he was an adult, he knew what he was doing and to trust him. One night my sister caught him red-handed and flipped out and told my mom. Cops came and he got arrested. I was only like 9 to 10 years old, so a lot of it is a blur. At first my mom had me sleeping in bed with her at night, and was babying me, and I loved it. One day, months later, we were walking home from school and we saw me dad's van sitting outside of our house. We weren't allowed in and we saw garbage bags sitting outside. My dad told us that my mom had called him earlier in the week and told him that if he didn't come and get us, she'd get rid of us. She wouldn't come out and talk to us, and I cried. My dad lived in another state, so this meant we'd have to leave our friends and our hometown. Our friends ran after the van as we drove away. For a few years she wouldn't talk to us because she had allowed my stepdad to come back, and that's why she stayed away. Guess she didn't want to face us after what she'd done. She'd chosen a man who'd abused her child over her own children. Eventually we had a relationship with her again, but she was so sick. The funny thing is that she's in a really high-up position for one of the largest banks in America. Professionally, people think she's amazing. She's a monster. I finally had the courage to cut her out when I went into recovery from heroin addiction 11 years ago, and haven't spoken to her since. A few people know this story, but not many, and it felt good to get it out to the world. My life has flourished since cutting her off. People always say how I need my mom. LOL. Don't be scared to boot family out of your life just because they're family. Thanks for allowing me to share this. Reddit. Story 3. Not a huge secret in comparison to some of these answers, but I feel the guilt of it often. After my fiancée passed, I napped all the time for over a year. My aunt was calling me one day and I just denied her call, went back to napping. It was my aunt calling because my grandma, who was very sick with cancer, wanted to say happy birthday a day before my birthday. Grandma died the next day. I should have picked up the damn phone. Story 4. My uncle owned an old Camaro that collected dust in his garage. When I was around 10, my family and I were in town visiting, and I wrote the word fuck in the dust on the hood of the car. I used my thumb so that the letters were fatter than my normal index finger. A few hours later my aunt/uncle asked us who did it, and I proved it wasn't me by showing how the person who did it had bigger fingers than me. Taking that shit to my grave. Story 5. One of my closest coworkers, who is an integral part to our very large corporation, killed a man in his late teens and threw the body in a lake. He only got off on a technicality. I work remotely, so I don't build a lot of personal relationships with people I work with regularly. I googled his full name. It freaked me out at first. But I've kinda gotten over it. I wonder if anyone else knows. It happened 40+ years ago. He will retire soon, and then I might ask another coworker about it. I just don't want to stir the pot. Story 6. 6 years ago, when I was 24, my mom randomly told me I have an older half-sister that my dad completely abandoned. She only knew of my sister's mother's name, so I searched for her on Facebook and found my sister. She is the spitting image of our father, so I knew immediately it was true. Both my sister and her mom confirmed it, and my sister and I immediately started bonding. We are incredibly close now. My father's side was overjoyed when I found her, as they knew of her but never what happened to her. We've all welcomed her with open arms, except my father. When she reached out to him, he essentially told her to fuck off, then screamed at me that she wasn't my sister, and continues to call me the bitch that ruined the family. Her and I did 23andMe and we matched as half-siblings, so now there's no denying it. I lost a shitty father but gained an incredible sibling that means 10x more to me. Story 7. My wife and I aren't officially married. No one knows. We had a ceremony and everything, reception, the whole 9 yards. We just never did the official paperwork. We realized that since she's going back to school, it benefits her financially to go through financial aid as single, rather than married. When she finishes up, we're going to head over to town hall and finish the last step. Story 8. I've been accessory to both my parents' infidelity. At age 5, my mother cheated on my dad while he was deployed, and my brother told me what was happening and that I shouldn't tell anyone. My father slept with his secretary 2 years later, for a few years, and would even bring me on dates with her, telling my mother we were going to the movies. He took me to her house and had her roommate watch me while they went out or just hung out in her room. They're still married. I don't know if either know the other did the thing, or if they still are doing the thing. Story 9. My cousin raped me when I was a kid, and to this day I haven't told anyone about it. It's been probably around 25 years ago or so, which makes me feel like it's not worth addressing after so much time. I absolutely hated it when his mom asked me why I didn't invite him to my wedding. I still don't know how I should have responded to keep that a secret. Story 10. I've been an addict my entire adult life. I used to drink all day every day. Before work, at work, and after work. I'd occasionally fall asleep on my lunch break or leaving work and have to make up some illness to friends and fam who were concerned. Today marks 185 days sober. Story 11. When I was 10, I was the victim of serial child molester. A teacher, a woman, and no one believed me. This is an important detail as to why I did what I would later do. Several years ago, I saw her while I was shopping. First, I was afraid. Then I realized I was not 10 anymore. I was a 25-year-old adult male. I became angry. I stalked her for weeks, saw her working as a teacher still, found her on social media, catfished my way into the cougar dating FB group she was in. Learned she had victimized more kids since she had lost me as her pet. She called her victims her teacher pets. After I was sure of everything, and had gathered my information, I plastered her neighborhood with her private FB group posts about how much she loves the feeling of power as she pins the little cubs to the desk in her office. The flyers had her face, her address, her phone number, and a bunch of other stuff. Story 12. 2 days before my dad took his life, he called me telling me what he wanted to do. He had been calling me and telling me how depressed he was for months, and I was sick of hearing it, and I hung up on him. I hung up on my suicidal father. He then killed himself on my 17th birthday. Everybody in the family thinks it was coincidence that he took his life on my birthday, but I know the real reason. I've never told a single member of my family, as I know they would blame me, especially my brother. Ever since he took his life, I have this recurring nightmare of seeing my dad in a grocery store passing at the other end of the aisle. He's pushing an empty shopping cart and briefly looks at me at the other end of the aisle but keeps going. When I run to where he was, he's now at the other end aisle. Rinse and repeat until up, wake up screaming. Some secrets will haunt you until you die. Story 13. Was married for 13 years to my best friend. We had what I thought was a great, easy marriage. One day our 5-year-old daughter told me he was having her perform oral sex on him. I was shocked, devastated, and afraid. He was one of those fun guys everyone loves to be around. I immediately called the police and he was arrested. When they started investigating him, they found out that he had been arrested while in college for exposing himself to very young boys. He only got a slap on the wrist that time because he came from a very wealthy family. One of his uncles was governor of the state we lived in. I was so ashamed I told our friends that he had an affair and moved away. But the truth was that he was in prison for 5 years. I picked up the pieces, sent our daughter to therapy, and spent the next 15 years being a mother. Paying for private school, cool trips, etc. She was my life. Then when she went to college, he reached out to her over Facebook. When I saw she was communicating with him, I was shocked, devastated, and afraid all over again. I called and told her that she was an adult, but I thought she should be careful because he's not safe. She hung up on me and has not spoken to me since. That was 4 years ago. I send her $40,000 a year still to pay for her medical school. It's all been almost unbelievable. Thank you for allowing me to share it here. Story 14. When I was around 5 or 6, my mom and dad were fighting just about every day. Well, I was napping on the couch when my mom came in very upset, and she shook me awake. She asked me if I saw the girl my dad brought home. I've always felt terrible for this BC. I hadn't seen anyone but my dad that whole day. I'm pretty sure he was just playing video games like usual, but for some reason in my sleepy kid brain I answered yes. I said she was with him in their room. I'm honestly not sure why I lied like that, but they got a divorce shortly after, and I always felt like it was my fault. Until I recently found out my little sister is actually my half-sister, but that's a whole other story. Thank you for watching. Remember to subscribe for more content. It means a lot to me.